The room went dead silent the moment I stepped in. Not a polite kind of quiet. No, this was a cold vacuum, like someone had pulled the air straight out of their lungs. My mother froze mid-laugh, champagne flute trembling in her hand. My brother's eyes locked on mine like he'd seen a ghost. And in a way, he had. The Carter family reunion was never supposed to include me. I wasn't even supposed to be alive. I took one step forward. The heels I hadn't worn in months clicked sharp against the hardwood floor. Aunt June's eyes widened, but not in fear, in recognition. She knew. She had always known. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just let them look at me. Unspoken questions filled the air like smoke. Where has she been? How is she alive? Why? Is she here? And then I saw him, my father. Stoic, silent. His jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. He didn't even blink. My mother finally broke the silence. Her voice was thin, cracking. Evelyn? She said it like a prayer, like the name alone might erase what they'd done. I tilted my head, let the moment stretch. Then I smiled, and said it loud enough for everyone to hear. You told them I ran away? A collective inhale rippled through the room. Somewhere a glass shattered. A baby started crying. I looked around at the faces that had pretended I never existed, and then I let the truth rise in my throat like fire. You want to know what really happened? Let me tell you, my name is Evelyn Carter, and I remember everything. Long before the silence, before the shattered glass and the fake tears, there was the kitchen. Ours always smelled like lemon cleaner and stress. Every Sunday morning, my mother would wipe the counters 3 times over, muttering about presentation, like someone was about to judge us. No one ever came. She had a voice that could slice through bone, sharp, bitter, always trembling on the edge of something cruel. You're so ungrateful, Evelyn. Do you ever think about how hard I work? It didn't matter if I was setting the table or breathing too loud. I was always too much, and never enough. My father? He sat behind the newspaper. Always behind. The damn newspaper. I don't even know what he read. Maybe he just used it to hide. And then there was Ryan, my older brother. The golden one. Quarterback, honors student. Never got grounded, not once. When I stayed out 10 minutes past curfew, I was a problem. When Ryan crashed Dad's car into a mailbox, Mom made cupcakes and called it a growing experience. Wasn't angry back then. Not really. Just tired. By the time I was 19, I had started community college and worked late nights at a diner off Route 12. My shifts ended at 2 a.m. I'd come home dead on my feet, and still get scolded if I forgot. To wipe my shoes. That night, it started with burnt toast and ended with a slap. You're not going to throw your life away like some waitress tramp. That's what she said. Loud, sharp, cruel. I remember my hand shaking as I grabbed my jacket. The porch light flickered, behind me as I walked into the dark. Just a few blocks to clear my head, I told myself. Just breathe, just breathe. The air was cold. My breath came out in clouds. It was late, quiet, empty streets and the hum of streetlights. My thoughts were loud, though, pounding against my skull. I didn't know that would be the last time I saw my house for almost a year. I didn't know someone I loved would be behind the wheel, and I definitely didn't know they'd all pretend. I was never coming back, but that was before. Before the blood, before the coma, before the lies, before I remembered. I don't remember the sound of the car. I remember the cold, the way it seeped into my jeans, into my shoes. I remember the silence of the street, how empty it all felt. Like I'd walked right off the edge of the world. Streetlights buzzed. Overhead, flickering in and out like they couldn't decide whether to keep shining. My hands were stuffed in my jacket pockets, fists clenched. My mother's words still rang in my ears. You're pathetic, Evelyn. Just like your father's side. I didn't even know what that meant. I just knew it hurt. I turned the corner near the old gas station, the one that had been shut down since I was 10. That's when I saw the headlights. Fast. Too fast. I didn't even have time to move. I felt it, a hot white impact, like getting hit with lightning. My body lifted off the ground, then nothing, just black. When I woke up, everything was wrong. The ceiling was too white, the sheets too stiff, my mouth was dry like sandpaper. There were wires coming out of my arms, beeping machines beside me, a nurse hovering just out of focus. "Hey," she whispered. "You're okay. You're at County General. You've been out a while." I tried to speak. Nothing came out. My throat felt raw, like I'd swallowed fire. "Don't panic," she said gently. "You were in an accident, hit and run, no ID. You've been here almost 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That couldn't be right. Someone would have come by now. Someone had to be looking for me, right? But no one came, no calls, no flowers, no familiar voices. They'd posted a small newspaper ad. Unidentified young woman found unconscious on Route 12. But no one answered it. And me? I didn't even know my own name. The doctors called it retrograde amnesia, temporary memory loss due to head trauma. I remembered things like colors and music, but not my birthday. Not my parents' names. Not who I was. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses, a woman yelling, a car door slamming, the smell of cinnamon toast, but none of it made sense. I was a blank slate, a question no one wanted the answer to. They moved me to a long-term care facility downtown. I spent my days relearning how to eat, how to walk, how to speak in full sentences. The nurses were kind, but they looked at me like a sad story, a Jane Doe who didn't matter, until one night, a song came on the TV. Fleetwood Mac, Landslide, and just like that, the glass cracked, the memories started to bleed through. It started with a song. Fleetwood Mac on the little TV above my bed. The kind of song that makes your chest tighten before you even understand why. Can I handle the seasons of my life? I don't know what it was. The melody, the voice, or the way the nurse hummed along, but suddenly, something inside me cracked open. A flash, not of music, but of cinnamon toast. A woman's hand slapping a plate down. My mother. Her rings clinking against ceramic, then more. Loud voices, screaming, slamming doors, cold air hitting my skin, the sidewalk, the streetlight, the headlights, and a face. My body jolted so hard, the heart monitor beeped out of rhythm. The nurse rushed in, asked if I was in pain. I told her no. I told her I remembered something. They brought in a therapist the next day. She asked gentle questions and encouraged me to let the memories come in waves. But mine didn't come like waves. They came like a flood. Each night I'd remember more. The diner, the way my hands smelled like grease, the cracked porch light, my mother's slap, my brother's fake smile apology afterward, and then it hit me. The car, the driver. It wasn't a stranger, it was Ryan, my own brother. His face, lit up in those headlights, eyes wide, mouth open like he was shouting something. I saw the logo on his hoodie, the red varsity R from his high school football team. I remembered the way he'd been drinking at my cousin's party earlier that night. How Mom had let him take Dad's car even though he'd stumbled down the front steps. It was him. He hit me, and he didn't stop. He just kept driving. I spent hours trying to convince myself I was wrong, that maybe my brain was blending memories, mixing timelines, but it felt real, too real. And then I remembered the voice, my father's. "Don't say a word about that night, Ryan. She shouldn't have been out there to begin with." I remembered hearing it. I remembered lying on the couch, still bruised, still dazed, and hearing him say that to my brother. They knew. They both knew. And still. They told the world I ran away, that I was unstable, emotional, embarrassing. They buried me in silence. Pretended I'd chosen to disappear, and all this time I'd been lying in a hospital bed, broken, forgotten, remembering everything. That night, I sat up in bed, staring out the window. I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to come. Back, not quietly, not gently, and not with forgiveness. The hospital made one last attempt to contact my family. It had been nearly a month. I could walk again. I could eat on my own. I could say my full name without forgetting it halfway through. Evelyn Carter, 19 years old, daughter, sister, not a ghost. The social worker called the number listed on my emergency contact form. My mother answered. I didn't hear the conversation myself, but I saw the nurse's face as she listened, how her eyes narrowed, how her mouth went tight. When she hung up, she looked at me like I'd just been orphaned. She said you ran away, the nurse told me gently, that you'd always been unstable, that they didn't want contact. I stared at her. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked her to repeat it. They didn't want contact. Just like that, I became an unperson. They hadn't filed a missing persons report. They hadn't called hospitals. They hadn't even checked the paper. What they did do was talk. My Aunt June, the only one who ever really looked me in the eye, would later tell me the full story. According to my mother, I'd left in the middle of the night after a mental episode. She told the extended family I was volatile, that I refused help, that I'd stormed off barefoot, refusing to speak to anyone. She said it like it was some tragic shame, like they were the victims. And people believed her. They threw a candlelight vigil in the church basement. Ryan gave a speech, tears and everything. He said, Evelyn, wherever you are, we hope you find peace. Peace. While I was in a hospital bed, hooked up to a monitor, relearning how to hold a spoon, they packed up my room, gave away my clothes, donated my books to charity, wiped me clean, like I was never part of them to begin with. I saw a photo later, a family picture taken just weeks after the accident. Ryan smiling, arms around my mother and father. They were at the lake house, the same one I'd loved as a kid. The same one I wasn't even allowed to mention without being called selfish. I stared at their faces and realized something horrifying. They were fine. They were better without me. And I was alive. And apparently an inconvenience. That night, I sat on the edge of my hospital bed holding the call button in one hand and my discharge papers in the other. If they were going to pretend I disappeared, I might as well show them what it looks like when someone comes back from the dead. It was Aunt June who told me the truth. She came to see me one rainy Thursday, long after the nurses had given up on any visitors ever walking through my door. She looked thinner, tired, but her hug was real. I didn't believe them, she whispered. I didn't believe a word. We sat on the vinyl couch by the window while the rain tapped gently on the glass. She held my hand the way no one had since the accident, like I mattered, like I existed, and then she started talking. They told everyone you'd run off in shame, she said, that you were unstable, emotional, that you couldn't handle being part of the family anymore. I stared at her. Did anyone ask why? June shook her head. They didn't want to know why. She'd tried, apparently, asked where they thought I'd gone, asked why they never filed a police report. My mother had snapped at her, said she was making it worse. But the worst part wasn't the story they told the world. It was the story they told each other. My father knew Ryan had taken the car that night. He knew Ryan had been drinking. He knew what happened. He knew, and he still let them blame me. He said it was an accident, June told me softly. Said you shouldn't have been out so late, wearing dark clothes. I remember laughing. The sound came out sharp and empty. They buried me under their own guilt and called it grief. They held fundraisers in my honor. My mother cried in church pews for show. Ryan posted a photo of us together from when I was 10 with the caption, "Miss you, sis." I wanted to throw something, scream, but instead, I sat very still, because something inside me was starting to change. This wasn't just neglect. This wasn't just dysfunction. This was a family that chose to erase me, because the alternative meant facing what they'd done, and if they could lie that easily, that convincingly, what else were they hiding? I looked at June. Can I stay with you, just until I figure things out? She nodded. No hesitation. That was the first yes I'd heard in months that didn't come with conditions. I packed what little I had, left the hospital with a limp and a folder full of trauma, but I was done being a ghost. The next time they saw me, I'd make sure everyone was watching. It was Ryan's engagement party. Of course it was. White linen tablecloths, champagne towers, fairy lights strung over the back patio like it was a damn Hallmark movie. Everyone was there. Cousins, church friends, old coaches, neighbors who thought they knew us. They didn't. I stood just outside the gate, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. My palms were sweating, my breath short, but I wasn't scared. Not anymore. I walked in, heads turned, one by one, like dominoes falling. Someone dropped a fork. Someone else whispered my name, and then my mother saw me. Her face went white, like the blood had just stopped. She took a single step back, gripped the edge of the table. Ryan turned. He was laughing, mid-toast, until his eyes locked on mine. He choked on his words. His fiancée touched his arm. "Who is that?" she whispered. He didn't answer. I walked straight through the center of the patio, letting the silence bloom around me like smoke. My Aunt June was there. She nodded. "Just once, Evelyn," my mother finally said, voice trembling. "You look, well," I smiled, sharp, measured. "You told them I ran away." Someone gasped. A guest shifted uncomfortably. My father cleared his throat. "Now's not the time for—" "No," I cut in. "Now is exactly the time." I turned to the crowd. They told everyone I ran away, that I was unstable, dangerous, embarrassing. I let it sink in. But that's not what happened. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I was in a hit and run. I spent weeks in the hospital with no ID, no visitors, no name. They knew. They knew where I was. Ryan opened. His mouth. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" I said. "Because I remember your face behind the wheel." Dead silence. Someone whispered, "What did she just say?" I remember the hoodie, the party, the smell of beer on your breath. My voice cracked, not from weakness, but rage. And I remember what Dad said. She shouldn't have been out there anyway. My father stepped forward. "Evelyn, please, this isn't the place." "No," June said. "Let her finish." And then I pulled out my phone. "Would you all like to hear what a cover-up sounds like?" I hit play. The voicemail played loud across the patio. My father's drunken voice, slurred and low. "She's gone. You need to keep your mouth shut. You were drinking, and I can't protect you if this gets out." The room froze. Ryan backed away. My mother covered her mouth. I looked straight at my father. "You didn't lose me. You erased me." And then, to the entire crowd, "This is the family that cried for a daughter they chose to forget." I walked out the same way I came in, alone. But not silent. This time, they heard every word. They say secrets rot from the inside out. Turns out, reputations do too. By the next morning, the voicemail had been forwarded, shared, screen recorded. A church friend sent it to her book club. A former teacher sent it to the school board. It didn't take long. Ryan's coaching job? Gone. Apparently, parents don't like it when the assistant coach is exposed as the drunk driver in a hit and run, especially when the victim was his own sister. The school tried to bury it quietly at first, but someone leaked the voicemail. Local news picked it up. Headline: Family covered up hit and run involving missing teen. My father was called in for questioning. Obstruction, negligence, tampering. He lawyered up. Of course he did. But you can't cross your T's after the house is already on fire. And my mother, oh, she spiraled. She tried to host another vigil, this time for healing. No one came. The neighbors stopped waving. People from church stopped returning her calls. And Ryan, he called me once, left a voicemail of his own. "You got what you wanted, okay? You ruined us." No. They did that all on their own. All I did was tell the truth. 1 week later, I got a letter in the mail, no return address, just my name, written in stiff handwriting. Inside was a check, a large one, and a single sentence on a torn slip of notebook paper. I should have protected you. Dad, I didn't cash the check. I framed the note, not because it meant anything, but because it was proof that even cowards know when they've lost. The truth didn't just break them, it hollowed them out. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a court case. I just needed the silence to end, and when it did, when the lies were stripped down to bone and dust, they had nothing left. I moved 3 states away, new name on the lease, new job at a bookstore that smelled like old paper and second chances. The apartment was small, but it was mine. No yelling, no pretending, no walking on eggshells, just quiet. Every now and then, I'd get emails from old classmates. Is it true? Are you okay? I never answered, because this part of my life, the after, didn't belong to them. It belonged to me. I finished my degree online, started journaling again, found a therapist who didn't flinch when I said, I wasn't missing, I was erased. My aunt sends me postcards. Little things. Farmers markets, thrift finds, a lemon bar recipe she swears I'll love. She never says much. She doesn't have to. And on my bookshelf, tucked between 2 old novels, there's a photo frame. Inside, a picture of my family. Me at 12. Ryan beside me. My mom with her fake smile. Dad standing stiff, like always. I burned the edges. Just enough to remind myself it was real, and that I survived it. Not to keep the pain, to remember the truth, because the truth didn't just set me free. It rebuilt me. Revenge wasn't the point. Freedom was.